women's time to get eliminated. Do you know I have not heard from no one? One other man I talked to, and that was Walter. So I'm not going to keep putting myself through that.
Hey guys, and welcome to Little Blackbird 91, talking to you guys about Ready to Love. Dealing with Sabrina. Does Sabrina have a case as to why she's frustrated with Frank and the rest of those who have not reached out to her? Let's have a little bit of a conversation and talk a little bit about that end scene. If you're new to the channel, make sure you like it, you share, you subscribe, you click on that bell button for notification on the what? Up, lows. And for those of you who are returnees, but you know what it is, baby. You got the minerals, you got the minerals. Stay hydrated because the streets out there are hot. All right. Cool. Let's get into this particular video. So I'm going to scoot a little bit backwards, right? Because it starts from before then. Okay. She puts on some pressure before that. Okay. She puts some pressure on to Frank. Okay. And the conversation that's had is around, first and foremost, her expressing the fact that none of the men actually reached out to her during the week of the women's elimination. Now it's women's elimination. None of the men are reaching out to her. She has always had to pursue and have conversation. My first thing is this. If you've always had to reach out and communicate with the men, that's the problem right there, isn't it? If you've always been the one pursuing, then that's the problem right there. You were pursuing them. They weren't pursuing you. And I'm not going to leave it as arbitrary as that, but it's a start, right? Which is that she used her own words to say she had been the one that was pursuing them. She'd have been the one that was contacting them. She'd have been the one that was doing this. And what happens is these men are going to feel that these men are really going to sit back and take your attention because they're not the ones that are pursuing, right? And this is the thing: if the ladies actually stopped pursuing, these men are going to have to start pursuing. But I know that the game is kind of rigged, right? Because we understand that people get voted off, and so you got to be strategic and careful how you move. But if she's saying what she's saying through her actual words, if we're to take everything she said on gospel, right? None of the men reach out to you. You are the one that always reaches out to them. You've been consistent over the past few weeks. Then actually, they're not the problem. They are, but they're not, right? Then Sabrina's a problem. Sabrina's a problem because she is chasing man. And whenever you chase man, this is a problem. Now, I know through the case of the show that the men tend to be very passive when it comes to this show, right? I actually think what could be a change for the rest of the seasons is that they actually have less men, right? Less women, right? Sorry, yeah? Because that will then make it harder, make them have to compete. You got less women, more men, that will make them compete. At the moment, it's equal numbers, and that makes people lazy and makes them sit back, right? But then, like I said, there's still other things that can come into play. But let's have a little look at what she says.
First of all, I have always been the one to reach out to you men. Always.
Pause point, right? I have always been the one to reach out to you men. That's what she said. I didn't say it. All right, cool. Let's go on.
Okay. This week, it was women's time to get eliminated. Do you know I have not heard from no one? One other man I talked to, and that was Walter.
Well, clearly, obviously, you've been hearing back from the men in previous weeks. And obviously now it falls onto, I mean, she's not saying that there's a pattern, right? She's saying that she always puts out the message. Fair enough. Then they respond, I'm guessing. But now on this particular week where it's women's elimination week, what she spotted is she reached out and they haven't responded. Yeah, because they've made a choice. Right? Because if they've responded in previous weeks, because this is not the first women's elimination. If they've responded in past weeks, it means they've made a choice. They've decided. They've chosen their ally. You can't get angry about it. See, at first I was confused. I was like, oh, I kind of see where Sabrina's coming from, because actually, if you deep it, you know, no one's reached out to her. She reached out to you. That's embarrassing. That's painful. It's hurt. It's shame. It's guilt. And I still think it's those things. But when I sat there and listened and actually tried to reason with what I'm hearing, and I may be wrong, I'm always open to being wrong. And maybe you guys can comment down below as well. Maybe you heard it differently. From what I'm hearing, sis, they've made a decision. Now, it doesn't sound like that. And obviously, they haven't been courteous enough to let you know they've made a decision. But they've made a decision, because it seems like you're not saying that they have always not replied to you, right? This is a week where it has happened because of Women's Elimination Week, right? So that would suggest that something has changed from the previous weeks.
So I'm not going to keep putting myself through that. That's not fair to me.
You're right.
You know?
You're right.
So
Sabrina is a strong woman with strong opinions. She definitely.
And you know what? She's right. That's not fair to her, right? But so again, and this works another way. If the men are also showing a pattern of not responding to her when she reaches out to them, you got to take a hint, right? This is the same thing I would say to the men. If the men were doing what Sabrina was doing and reaching out, and they only get a response during men's elimination, right? And they stopped getting responses during men's elimination. I would say to them, well, it's clear you don't have anybody who's connecting with you. That's the truth. That's really the truth, right? And I would call it cold hard facts. Say, man, the reason why the girls are not responding to you during men's eliminations because they're not on you. And like I said, let's leave it open and say that they had responded, but this is the week that they didn't respond. What made them respond in the other weeks that this week they didn't respond? Something has changed. They've made a decision. Now, we get the courtesy of watching the show. They don't. She don't have the answers. That's probably why she's frustrated and annoyed. They probably haven't been up front and straight with her and let her know straight away. And thus, she's frustrated. And I get that point. Yeah, I get that part too, right?
Was scared that she could possibly be eliminated. But I'm just hoping that the heat turns off just a little bit.
I do want to say that within deliberations, your name.
Now, what's really important here is that something is going to be given as information. And this is really key to why the men, Frank gave her a hint, but did not give her the answer. He gave her a hint, but not the full answer as to why she is in the position that she's in. He gave her a hint, right? And he's about to deliver it here as to why, right? Frank is obviously not taking too kindly to the fact she's blasting him, but he's about to give her the reason back. And I do empathize with Sabrina because, like I said, you've been pursuing and you've been seeing results, but then suddenly it stops. It makes sense that why you might feel some type of way. All right, cool.
Name came up. Though you are making connections with a good amount of these men, you say yourself that you are having a hard time.
Pause. Do you know what's interesting? The wording from Frank there. If you paid attention, he said, though you are having, let me just play it again so you get it, right? I want you to listen to the pattern of the way he says the phrase, because it's really important to what he's going to say, right? Let's have a look.
Within deliberations, your name came up. Though you are making connections with a good amount of these men, you say yourself.
There we go. Your name came up in deliberation. And though you are saying that you have a good amount of connections with these men that you say, something is not quite right, right? It's the wording that he uses. So you say, it's not, I don't want to say it's shade, but it's low-key shade, saying basically, you think you're having connections, you ain't. You think you're connected, you ain't. You think that you're having these things, you ain't. Because your name came up in deliberation, and there's a reason why it came up. So there was a little bit, I don't want to say shade, but it was shade, and it was more of a case of saying, I don't really believe what you're saying, right? Because that's not what happened when we talk amongst us men.
That you are having a hard time finding, your truest, genuine connections. And I think that some of that is swayed by.
Now, I just want to pause it because copyright. He's about to express why some of that, he just said, obviously, some of that is swayed. Some of the reason why people are putting you in the bottom, why they are not maybe connecting with you at this moment, why they're probably not conversating with you, maybe why they're not talking to you at this moment. There's a reason. Let me give you the reason why.
Some of the information you relayed that wasn't necessarily clear.
See that smile on her face there? Maybe it's a cut, maybe it's an edit that's not meant to be there. But that little quirk there, I think it tells a story. She knows exactly what he's talking about, which is that she knows what he's about to say. The information she relayed was she wasn't having kids. And because she wasn't having kids, many of the men wanted kids. Thus, unfortunately, you became disqualified for a lot of the men. Sean said it. Phil said it. Walter said it. Okay? I haven't really heard Frank and the rest of them say it per se out loud, but at least those 3 men have definitely said it. And those men were also interested, also in Sabrina, at least Frank and Sean, Walter and Walter, Sabrina, Walter, Phil, and Sean were actually interested in her, right? So the information you've given out, okay, has pushed people away, and they're like, nah, I don't want to be involved in that. Suddenly you change your mind, and it's a bit too late. That's what Phil was saying earlier on. Let's play.
You know, when we deliberated and came down to it, it was just like.
Sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that. Let me go forward. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I went to the other clip. But, you know, so the information that's been given back to the boys in the group, that's what's informed their decision. And I think what's happened is that, you know, the boys didn't let her know, hey, look, you know what? I appreciate the fact you're interested, but because of the change of position, because of the positional change, I can no longer pursue, right? But the truth is she's been pursuing. So the men have actually probably used that and taken advantage of it and said, you know what, I'm allowed to keep pursuing because at the end of the day, it's tactics, it's strategy. I got to stay on the show, right? Rather than telling us, and hey, actually, for me, I'm not interested anymore.
Decide that we're giving you another chance for you to be able to find love. But in doing so, I do want you to know what's being discussed right now.
So she's been given another chance. You can see the little, you know, you can see the things running through her mind. You can see it's running through her head. You can see there's a lot going on in her mind and the way she's thinking. And I understand. And she's about to again go into another phase of conversation with Frank, where she's about to tone it down. Yeah, tone it down. That's what she's gonna do.
I probably could have done more, but I didn't because they weren't doing anything.
And that's your truth.
Like, I'm feeling some type.
Again, Frank would have come in with a shade. He said, listen, and that's your truth. She said, I could have done a bit more. He said, and that's your truth, which lets me believe that there's more than just the baby issue. Something else is amiss, right? Because she's saying that she's putting all the effort in, and it sounds like Frank is getting a different information. That's why he's saying, oh, and that's your truth. Rather than saying, do you know what, I hear you, and you're right. Yeah, of course. He said, and that's your truth. Meaning there's something more for him, at least that he's heard, or something that he's feeling that's more than just the change of mindset when it comes to the baby situation. Something else has caused the man them to feel the way they do and put in a bomb. Right? Cool.
I have a way right now. I might as well date the women. The women would love me the way I pursue. I mean, some of them have been a little bit more consistent, but it's.
Well, sis, if you are pursuing, this is the danger of pursuing. When you pursue men, this is one of the dangers. Don't pursue men, right? Now, maybe she'll come out and say it was not that way inclined, meaning it's not that she's chasing man. And I'm not even trying to say chasing. I'm saying the active pursuit is left to us to do. Let us do that, Sabrina. You know what I'm saying? You've got Walter who's doing it. Let us do that. Let us keep, you know, in touch with you. Let us push that narrative. You know what I'm saying? Of course, once in a while check in, but let us push that narrative. Don't push it yourself, because now you're in a situation where you're feeling like I've made great connections, and the guys are like, you thought you were making great connections, but we weren't even really there. We're there. Basically, we're using your interest now so we can stay on the show as a strategic point, right? But it means a lot, or says a lot, when she's having a conversation saying us to us, the audience, that they haven't messaged her at all. That says a lot. They've made up the decision, mate. They've made up their mind to go God's way for the rest of my life. They made up their mind to go God's way for the rest of my life.
Little Blackbird, you know what time it